that with my stance with PTRI, I could say that I left a bit of legacy to the Institute and to the still struggling silk industry. I couldn't still say that's an industry. That's why most of my terms will still be sericulture. Because silk industry, a sunrise industry, still needs to be in a full sunshine. So, for this afternoon, I hope you could bear. I have 40, I guess, 40 slides, but I hope I could go through fast through these slides. We are about an hour late. So as I said earlier, and our previous speakers, silk in the Philippines has a long history, and this was shown through the garments of our ancestors. Obviously, recorded history in the multiple government efforts to establish a silk industry in the past show ups and downs. And I hope that this group will reflect and pick up on where we left our experiences so that we could really revitalize the silk industry. Revitalize the silk industry, I guess it's not only the third time or fourth time. We have done it in the past. So, I put a challenge to this group now. This is a Philippine Silk Summit. We will know where we were, where we are, and where to go. As the Tagalog, di ka makakarating sa iyong paroroonan pag di ka lumingon sa iyong pinanggalingan. So, silk, ganun din yun. And as what Director Elumba, silk remains to be the queen of textile of the royal family. And I saw that DOST is wearing the royal blue color. Is it royal blue? Is it royal blue now? So 2020, I think this is the start of a more bright sericulture endeavor for PTRI and its partners. Have you ever wondered why barong or the saya is our national costume? Well, for me, I think it is based from our long history. So we have our barong Tagalog that was made of silk in the past. And still, silk is being claimed to be supposed to be the material for our barong Tagalog. So let me now give you a chronological events recorded in the history of silk. So that's the first class silk yarn. In 1225 AD, that was the first time, upon our readings, my readings actually, that silk was recorded to have entered the Philippines. Then in 1593, mulberry plantation in Visayas were planted by a Jesuit father, Antonio Sedeño. In 1780, an Augustinian missionary, Father Manuel Galeana, sent mulberry plants from China and silkworm eggs. So for the handful sericulturists, I think this is already a very repeated mentioned information. But for this group, I think most of you will be having the new information. Now for the 18th century, there was no specific year for it. An attempt to plant mulberry was registered in what is now the Malate area in Manila. And from 1780 to 1903, there was no recorded attempts on silkworm culture. But I I presume that the mulberries that had been planted were still standing at the time. In 1905, according to Charles Bank, silkworm eggs of the monovoltine race from Japan arrived, and this was divided equally to Don Vicente Fernandez of Nasugbu, Batangas for his experiment, and the other half was used by Charles Banks at the Bureau of Science Experiment Station in Singalong, Manila. Bureau of Science is now the Bureau of Plant and Industry. In 1907, another race of silkworm entered the Philippines, that is the Bengal Ceylon race, because the Japanese race, which is a monovoltine race, did not thrive well. We are a tropical country, and when we say a monovoltine race, it thrives in a temperate country. It needs chilling, it needs winter. That we don't have. So in 1910, the Bureau of Science made experiments on crossing of this Japanese monovoltine and the Bengal. And it recorded that that was the Philippine race of silkworms. So what we have in PTRI actually is now perhaps the second Philippine race. However, this Philippine race of silkworms mentioned in 1910 did not thrive. So what we have now is a totally different Filipino silkworm. Okay. So in 1920, it was recorded that 500 hectares of mulberry was planted in Canlaon, Negros Oriental. There was silkworm raising, rearing of cocoons, and weaving, as well as fabric dyeing. We don't have actually evidences of this anymore. It was just written, but we don't have any pictures of it anymore. Now, in 1938, rearing of two Japanese silkworms were also done in Batak, Ilocos Norte, and this grew into a commercial scale, but collapsed during the World War. So actually, it was the World War II who was the culprit of the thriving sericulture industry then. In 1950s, the UP Agriculture School in North Cotabato claimed to have extensive mulberry plantations and engaged also in cocoon reeling and handloom weaving. So actually, we could say that sericulture, together with weaving, is already a heritage. So in 1969, the Bureau of Plant and Industry again took active part in silkworm rearing, as introduced by the Japanese. And simultaneously, during that same period, the Mountain Province Development Authority in Benguet, with the aid of JOCV, embarked on the mulberry planting and cultivation in Benguet. However, in 1972, the MPDA was abolished. And this, actually, the abolition of the MPDA is the precursor of what now we have as a sericulture industry. Now, why do I say it's a precursor? Because this project that was maintained by MPDA was transferred to PTRI by virtue of an executive order. So in 1973, an executive order was signed transferring the sericulture project of NPBA to the then NSDP, which is now DOST. And in this connection, our late engineer Ricardo Cruz was the recipient of the sericulture project. Now, there are arguments regarding this project, but anyhow, somehow, we still have these holdings up to now. Now, in 1974, following the transfer of the SRTC, the sericulture project, the Sericulture Research and Training Institute of the NSDB was established in La Trinidad, Benguet. So it's still there up to now. And at the same time, UPLB started its sericulture research with Dr. Bernardo Garbial of the Department of Entomology as the project leader. Then it was, the project was a 5-year project that was funded by Picard at the time, and Picard now. In 1975, Central Luzon State University embarked on sericulture under the leadership of Dr. Philomena Campos, who was once a woman engineer. She's still living up to now and based in Las Marinas. In 1976, the first general sericulture training was conducted and initiated by a Korean consultant, Dr. Bi-Hyung Che. And as an offshoot of the seminar, the second sericulture station of PTRI was established in Kalingagan, Villanueva, Misamis Oriental. So PTRI aware that sericulture is not a simple agro-industrial venture. It sought the consultancy services of Korean, Japanese, and other experts. This brought to PTRI a Korean sericulture, Dr. Jung Sung Lin, who drafted a 10-year development plan. And from this development plan, sericulture had its foothold in the country again. In 1977, the Misamis Oriental branched out into another field station that is in Lanice, Claveria, Misamis Oriental. And this morning, I heard that a group in here has again revived the industry with 17 farmers. So that's a very positive indication that sericulture will again be revived in that area. In 1978, Dr. Lim's assignment with PTRI enabled PTRI to lead the sericulture development among all incoming government and private institutions. More farmers have engaged in cocoon production despite the intermittent arrival of imported silkworm eggs. So mentioned earlier that eggs that were used in the previous undertakings of PTRI in the early to late 70s were all imported. But importation of these eggs was beset by so many problems, such as untimely arrival and diseases, which created a great loss to still the R&D efforts of PTRI then. So, by coincidence, just when PTRI recognized the need of a breeding and egg production center to address the increasing silkworm demand of the farmers then, the first batch of 4 improved silkworm races that are close to pure lines was given to SRTC Benguet through the sisterhood of Benguet and Kumamoto Prefecture of Japan through the JOCV, Japan Overseas Cooperation Volunteer. These silkworm races became the very first genetic materials and were continuously availed every year thereafter. Having them at hand, breeding and egg production experiments were started. So this was the time that I was hired as a researcher in PTRI. I started my work with PTRI in 1977, and along my line of discipline, I was the one assigned to do the R&D for silkworm breeding. In 1979, another agricultural college ventured into it, now Cavite State University, and had almost 5 years of R&D. In 1980, DIMSU had a sericulture project under the Plant Science Department of the College of Agriculture, and this is now being handled by SRDI. Dr. Agapos here, my contemporary in the sericulture industry, is a very strong supporter, pushing hard to make also sericulture become a true silk industry. So during this decade, 1980, there were so many state agricultural universities that ventured into silk. I guess at that time, when one commodity is heard and is popular, state colleges and universities try it. And for that reason, we had more than 30 in the academe who were having these researches. So just to mention some, we have those in CMU, in MMSU, I think we lost track. Oh, in 1980. Eastern Samar, Assis, I think, Abra still there, Benguet State University, Batangas had also an undertaking. So these are just a few of the universities. So in 1981, the sericulture research, or the PTRI, was transferred to the Ministry of Trade and Industry. At that time, we were already having our egg production research, and the SRDI, the Sericulture Research and Training Center in La Trinidad, was renamed as the Silkworm Breeding and Egg Production Center. So, 1981 up to, that's about 1988, that we were under MTI, or maybe 1986. But this was also the peak. This was also the time when we had our breakthrough in silkworm breeding. So in 1983, our center successfully developed the first 4 Filipino hybrids, which we named PTRI-SW1, because that's the shortest name that we could name them before. So we just content ourselves to having 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, silkworm hybrids. So this significant breakthrough led to the expansion of cocoon production. At that time, we were having so many farmers also, individual farmers. Later on, we'll see on the community engagement of PTRI, who these were that we worked with. So aside from the countryside farmers, marginal farmers, private companies also entered into the picture. So in mid-1980, a record of exportation of dried cocoons was achieved through Japanese traders. We had 2 popular traders before, the Mitsui and the Sureda group of traders. In 1986, the first sericulture community was established in Kapangan, Benguet, involving farmers. And this establishment of a sericulture community was financed by Fisher. The farmers was organized and named as the Kapangan Sericulture Farmers Association. The KSFA became the primordial of the succeeding farmer cooperators and farmer associations in Cordillera as well as the whole country. At the height of the cocoon production, there were no less than 50 sericulture farmers association, that is association, and cooperatives with more than 1,000 members. So you could imagine that cocoon production at that time was huge. In 1987, so it was 1987, PTRI, was given back to the DOST. So from MTI, we were under the DOST under an executive order. It was also this year that SRDC then, Sericulture Research Development Center, was established through the DIMSU Board Resolution. 1990, among the remaining institutional key players, the FIDA and the BA has its beginnings. In 1991, because of the efforts of our silkworm breeding and our experience of the devastating earthquake, the PTR station was given the Civil Service Pag-asa Award for saving the eggs during the aftermath of the earthquake. In 1992, the first Filipino hybrids of the 20th century, so what we have now, was recognized again by the DOST, and as such, the team from Benguet was given the Likha Award for Outstanding Creative Research. SRDC of DIMSU also became now an institute. From 1980 to 1998, the period is considered as the peak of sericulture. So there was a surge of foreign and local assistance. Sericulture personnel from the key players benefited through trainings. And this pool of trainees became the experts in almost all aspects of the sericulture. From that, I think who remained now in the industry here is Dr. Agona, Dr. Gapus, and her team. So we still have really those experts. In 2000, in the year 2000, okay, those were our partners, our foreign funding institutions from 1980 to 1998. FAO, UNDP, UNIDO, COICA. FAO, UNIDO, UNDP, we had 3 big projects under this, which was geared towards the development of sericulture and silk production in the Philippines, authored by Dr. Rao. Then we had the development of sericulture as a rural-based industry by Dr. Kim Yong-Kim, and then followed by a sericulture rehabilitation in Mindanao that was funded by FAO. Our JICA program continued to be pursued, but there was no specific program for it. It's in the form of technical support. Okay. So those were the players at the peak of cocoon production. We have the Philippine Packing Corporation, which became the Silk Mountain Corporation, owned by the family of then Secretary Lorenzo. We had a big company in Laguna, the Silco. We have the Unisilk company, the SCI in Silang, Cavite, and the Ampuna Silk in Bulacan. The Ampuna Silk actually continued into the silk yarn production. I don't know if the machines are still there, no more. So maybe the machineries also were brought back to other countries. Okay. For the linkages that we forged, as mentioned earlier, we have those foreign linkages as well as the local linkages. Along with the decline of cocoon production, actually the cocoon production was affected by the market situation at that time, cocoon pricing, and also the dictate of a quota system. Our traders give us a quota of which we were not able to sustain or achieve. So this brought them to other countries for another source. So consequently, mulberry plantation decreased and difficulties in securing funds from funding agencies occurred. And the sericulture then thrived with very minimal budget. Unlike at this time when you have, I think, so much fun. And with that, I foresee that the sericulture R&D will be better. So the major sericulture players, PTRI, SRDI, and now the PhilFIDA on the government sector and the OISCA as an NGO continued their efforts to maintain the industry to the present, 2020. Linkages 4, we had of course our the international agencies. Then we have our local agencies, the PICARD, PSHIRD, BPI, and as well as the Technology Livelihood Center. On the part of BPI, in the 1980s, BPI was commissioned to serve as a quarantine of imported eggs in partnership with PTRI. So as mentioned earlier, linkages with more than 30 state universities were done. There were NGOs also. I don't know if these NGOs are still existing. The Ayala Foundation, the Jaime V. Ongpin Foundation, Plan International, OISCA of course is still there. The Philippine National Volunteer Corporation, I don't know, Catholic Relief Services, and the Growth and Equity for Mindanao, or the GEM. On the private sector, we recorded engagement of the General Textile Mills, that is on the part of weaving, Phil Fibers, the Merino Silk, the Ampuna Silk, Art Divan, and Lacto Asia. Okay, for community involvement, since PTRI pioneered in sericulture, it cannot let loose its partners, its farmers, since the conception of the industry. So farmers were assured of constant and timely supply of silkworms from the centers of Benguet and Misamis Oriental. So these were our first partner cooperators in Kapangan and in Sablan, Benguet. Then from the individual farmers, we had our farmer associations also in Sablan and also in Bukidnon. SRDI and FIDA had their part of this community engagement. So working hand in hand, they also had their farmer associations and individual farmers. So as you can see, we have so much farmer associations at that time. Now, during the 1980 to 1980 to 1990, the marginal farming approach was implemented, but this method was beset by many obstacles. And cocoon production was intermittent and very low. So due to this, PTRI revolutionized its approach. And in year 2000, by tapping farmer entrepreneurs, about 8 sericulture model farms were established in Pangasinan as far as Aurora, Negros Occidental, Bukidnon, and even in Pagadian City. Under this setup, AMOA was entered into by the model farmers for a model farmer to be having at least 5 hectares. So 5 hectares or more for them to operate. There was also community involvement in handloom weaving, and just to mention the Abay weavers in Lagindingan. Okay, now, to wrap up the history, I would just like to mention the key takeaway from the R&D implementation of the sericulture during this time. Actually, I left the government service in 2008, so this information that I gave you are mostly up to the mid-2005. Information beyond that, I think the Misamis Oriental Group had more of it. So earlier said, PTRI has the biggest germplasm in the country. When I left, we had about 140. That is both from the Benguet and the Misamis Oriental. And as an agreement to be able to save this race, these races were transferred to Misamis Oriental. And that actually was what Director Ilumba mentioned, that they have 84 races. Apart from that, the Trinidad Benguet still holds. So why 84? At the time when we transferred actually the races, it was 140. Those were not yet pure lines. Some are undergoing various stages of breeding. And I was delighted also to know the other day when I went to PTRI that breeding has all leveled up to the genomic. When I left, there was a proposal for establishment of genetic markers for our silkworm races to be worked with UP Diliman. And it is good thing that vision, that aspect of breeding is now on process. Okay, second, the Filipino silkworm hybrids. So those were our first. I don't know how many now. Later we will know from Dr. Gapos and Chin how many more silkworm races we have now, hybrids. The cocoon commercialization production was also initiated and became a major undertaking of PTRI. Establishment of 2 multiplication centers. It entailed a larger scale of production to have hybrids to support farmers then. So 2 multiplication centers were built. This one is with BSU in Benguet and another one in Misamis Oriental. So these 2 centers have a combined capacity of producing 50,000 silkworm boxes of eggs that could supply 1,000 hectares of mulberry field. We have a highly skilled sericulture personnel. From the trainings, foreign and abroad, we have almost mastered the processes of silkworm rearing to silkworm reeling. Another takeaway is the pilot sericulture model farm. Along with the processes of silkworm breeding and mulberry cultivation, PTRI came up with techno-guides. So we have PTRI with JICA, sericulture technique guide for cocoon production, and we also were able to develop the Moritech. That is a techno guide for the cultivation of mulberry. We have also development of cocoon post-harvest and raw silk processing technologies with our filature facilities. FIDA had also its filature as well as SRDI. Cocoon post-harvest, a cottage-type reeling machine was innovated for use on the farmer's side, and this was made in operation in the Cordillera. This was patented under PTRI. So, silk waste, actually, the reeling of cocoons further into silk weaving and also hand spinning. One aspect of the sericulture that there is no waste in the silk industry is the conversion of the waste into handicrafts. So the cocoons, waste cocoons, could actually be turned into handicraft products. Okay, as a personal experience, being a breeder is very difficult. It was a 24/7 job. 24/7 job for almost 60 days that we almost slept. We always slept in our stations. It's a very difficult job, and I admire the breeders that are still here with us, who are working patiently in order to maintain the silkworms. Because if we lose the silkworms, we have to go another cycle. So as in the life cycle of a silkworm, the silk industry is still to have its own cycle. So PTR became a training ground also, and I could consider PTRI as the link of the past and present. Well, our key players are still here, the PTRI and SRDI. I don't know if they could acknowledge that PTRI is actually the link of the past and the present, and hopefully the future silk industry. Today, through this summit, this generation of researchers, stakeholders, and multi-sectoral group present got few information of the efforts, milestones, loopholes, and the flaws of the past undertakings. So from this, new focus, direction, strategies, and more effective implementation of the program and projects can again be put into a new perspective. And with the energetic Dr. Lianyo, I hope that our vision, our goal to see the fusion of a true silk industry will now come into a reality. To everyone who have the passion on silk, may this gathering propel the silk industry in the Philippines as envisioned by our predecessors. Thank you.
very much to